of the coastal wind was drowned out by the scream of Officer Miller as he slammed his heavy flashlight onto the hood of a pristine 1961 Lincoln Continental, forcefully grabbing the collar of 11-year-old Ezra. "I told you to get back in the car. I'm impounding this relic, and your father's going to jail." Miller's voice was thick with the poison of unchecked authority. Ezra, a boy of dark complexion whose grandfather was a lead engineer for the state's infrastructure, didn't tremble. He looked at the officer with a chilling, calm precision. "Officer, you didn't just ignore a kid. You ignored the harmonic resonance of a failing suspension cable. You have exactly 45 seconds before the center span of this bridge collapses under the weight of that fuel tanker behind us." The terrifying groan of twisting steel from beneath the asphalt signaled the end of Miller's arrogance. The morning fog rolled off the Atlantic, clinging to the steel girders of the Verrazano Grand Bridge. Gliding through the mist was a masterpiece of American history, a 1961 Lincoln Continental, its suicide doors and chrome bumpers shining like a silver mirror. Behind the wheel was Ezra's father, but the eyes of the vehicle belonged to Ezra, an 11-year-old boy whose mind functioned like a structural blueprint. Ezra wasn't looking at the ocean. He was looking at the way the bridge's expansion joints were vibrating. To anyone else, it was just the rhythm of the road. To Ezra, it was a death rattle. He held a vintage brass plumb bob and a digital vibration sensor, watching the needle spike into the red zone every time a heavy truck passed the second pylon. "Dad, pull over," Ezra said, his voice a steady, disciplined baritone. The tension in the western cable is drifting. The wind shear is creating a torsional flutter that the bridge wasn't designed to handle. Before his father could answer, the blue and red lights of a patrol car exploded in the rear-view mirror. Officer Miller, a man who viewed his badge as a license to bully, didn't like the look of a fancy vintage car driven by people who didn't belong in this zip code. License and registration. Miller barked as he walked up, his hand resting aggressively on his holster. "I saw you swerving. I bet this old boat doesn't even have working brakes." "Officer, the car is perfect," Ezra stated, stepping out of the passenger side. "But the bridge isn't. You need to close the northbound lanes immediately. The pylon seat is shearing." Miller laughed, a dry, mocking sound. "I don't need a schoolboy to tell me how to do my job. In this county, I'm the one who gives orders. Now, get back in that seat before I find a reason to take you into custody." Ezra moved to show the officer the vibration data on his sensor, but Miller wanted a display of power. The officer reached across the hood and forcefully gripped Ezra's forearm, twisting it as he tried to snatch the sensor away, thinking it was a toy. The physical violation was shocking. Miller pinned Ezra against the hot, black leather of the Lincoln's interior door, his heavy hand pressing firmly against the boy's chest. "I said stay in the car," Miller hissed, his face contorted in a sneer. "You think because you're riding in a classic you're better than me? You're a kid. You're a suspect. And right now, you're interfering with a police investigation." Ezra suffered the physical contact with a stoic, terrifying dignity. He felt the cold metal of the car's trim against his back. "Officer, you are currently committing a physical assault and ignoring a public safety emergency. I suggest you remove your hand before the weight of that incoming tanker causes a catastrophic failure." Miller didn't listen. He ratcheted the pressure on Ezra's wrist, causing the brass plumb bob to fall and shatter on the asphalt. "The only failure here is your attitude." He forcefully shoved Ezra toward the back seat, while he began to write a fabricated citation for obstruction. The tension on the bridge was suffocating. Miller's partner, a younger officer named Sarah, stared at the bridge cables through her binoculars, her face turning a ghostly shade of white as a 50,000-gallon fuel tanker approached the center span. Miller stopped. "Look at the cable. It's swaying 6 feet off axis," Sarah whispered, her voice trembling. "Not now, Sarah. I'm teaching this brat a lesson." Miller lied, his arrogance forcing him to double down as he kicked the Lincoln's tire. A construction worker, Leo, who was fixing a pothole nearby, pointed to the pylon. "Sir, the concrete is cracking." "The boy is right. The whole deck is shifting." Miller turned on the worker, pointing his finger aggressively. "It's a maintenance issue. Get back to your hole." Miller's refusal to listen to anyone, high or low status, created a pressure cooker of impending disaster. Ezra, standing by the open suicide door, pulled out his grandfather's emergency radio. "Officer Miller, the harmonic frequency has reached 2.4 hertz. If that tanker hits the expansion joint at 40 miles per hour, the bridge will unzip." Miller just mocked him. "You're a kid with a radio. I am the law on this bridge." The suspense reached a fever pitch as the fuel tanker reached the pylon. Suddenly, the bridge didn't just vibrate, it groaned. A terrifying metallic snap echoed across the water as the first secondary cable snapped, whipping through the air like a giant steel lash. "The cable, it's gone," Sarah screamed. "Miller, the deck is dropping." The flow shifted from a traffic stop to a survival nightmare. Miller panicked. He tried to run to his patrol car to use a loudspeaker, but the shifting deck caused him to stumble. He was frozen, his authority useless against the laws of physics. Ezra didn't run. He grabbed the emergency flares from the trunk of the Lincoln. "Dad, move the Lincoln across both lanes. Block the traffic." Ezra ran toward the oncoming tanker, waving the flares with a rhythmic military-style precision. He wasn't a child anymore. He was the only thing standing between 100 motorists and a watery grave. Just before the shocking reveal, we want to take a quick moment to thank you for your support, love, and kindness. We wouldn't have come this far without you. Subscribing is one of the best ways you can help us. It's quick, free, and allows us to continue to bring you great content. Your support means everything. Let's keep this channel growing collectively. Where are you watching from? Drop your city and country in the comments below. Thank you very much. Now, let's get back to the story. Ezra stood in the middle of the vibrating bridge deck, the fuel tanker looming over him like a mountain of steel. He didn't use fear. He used the power of his grandfather's legacy. "Stop." Ezra's voice boomed, amplified by the megaphone he grabbed from Miller's own car. "The pylon is gone. Reverse now." He turned his gaze to Miller, who was trembling on the ground. "Officer," Ezra said quietly, "I am the one saving these people now. Get your hands off your holster and start directing them to the safety of the South Pier. You are no longer in charge of the scene." The silence that followed the screeching of the tanker's brakes was so thick it felt heavy. Miller stood frozen, his hand still clutching the ticket book he had used to humiliate Ezra. He watched as the center span of the bridge, the very ground he had claimed to own, began to sag visibly into the ocean. The kid he had pinned against the car was now standing on the hood of the 1961 Lincoln Continental, directing a massive evacuation with the calm of a veteran general. "Miller, you spent so much time looking at our skin and our old car that you forgot to look at the structure and integrity of the world around you," Ezra said. "I didn't just spot a crack. I calculated the failure of your entire jurisdiction. My grandfather built this bridge, and I have the remote override codes for the emergency gates." The power shift was absolute. The suspect was revealed to be the only person capable of preventing a massacre. Miller's partner, Sarah, handed Ezra her radio, realizing that the 11-year-old was the only one the panicked drivers were listening to. The truth reveal was a public execution of Miller's career. He had triggered his own downfall by violating the safety of the citizens he swore to protect. "Ezra, wait! I was just doing my job. You can't tell the chief about the physical part," Miller pleaded, his voice cracking as the news helicopters began to circle overhead, filming him trembling while a child saved the day. "We just did tell the chief, Miller," Ezra replied, his voice a calm, sharp blade. "And the governor. My radio is patched into the emergency broadcast. The whole state just heard you threaten a citizen while the bridge was falling." Ezra signaled to the state troopers, who were now arriving by helicopter. "Gentlemen," Ezra said, looking at the arriving officers, "Officer Miller is no longer fit to hold a scene. Please assist him in removing his badge. Specifically, before the cameras get a close-up of a man who assaulted a child during a disaster. Everything else stays with the department." In front of the motorist he had nearly allowed to die, and the young officer Sarah, Miller was forced to stand as his badge was stripped from his chest. He was escorted off the bridge he had tried to rule with an iron fist, walking past the rows of families who were hugging Ezra in gratitude. The public shaming was total. By the time he reached the end of the bridge, the video of his assault on Ezra was the #1 trending topic in the country. Ezra didn't just save the motorists. He saved the heritage of the bridge. Under his recommendation, the state named a new span after his grandfather and instituted a young engineers program to find other geniuses of dark complexion who are often silenced by the millers of the world. He didn't want a medal. Instead, he used the settlement from the assault to restore the 1961 Lincoln Continental to a museum-grade masterpiece. The moral resolution saw the bridge rebuilt with the most advanced sensors in the world. Overseen by Ezra as a junior consultant, he became a symbol of a new era of authority, one built on expertise and respect rather than a badge and a bully's heart. Officer Miller, once the king of the highway, was relegated to a footnote in legal history. A man who lost his career and his dignity because he couldn't control his bias against an 11-year-old who knew more about the world than he ever would. Wisdom doesn't wait for a birthday to inhabit a soul. When you treat people with disrespect based on their age or their appearance, you are ignoring the very wisdom that could save your life. Arrogance is a weight that eventually breaks the bridges you stand on. True power is not found in a badge, but in the integrity of the person wearing it.